Let's talk Madeline's birth story. Okay, so long story short, we honestly had a very positive birth experience. I'm gonna try to share all the specifics I can remember. It honestly is already a bit of a blur. It's been 3 weeks and life has just been crazy and blissful in the newborn phase. And yeah, but let's get into the play-by-play, the main details I can remember, and just some other little fun nuggets within our birth story. Overall, we had a very healthy pregnancy. I'm honestly so blessed with how everything turned out, both with pregnancy, delivery, after delivery, everything. So I was overdue by about a week, and this was Monday, the 10th of April. I go into my OB for my second post-term appointment to check on everything, make sure everything's all good. By this point, I was exhausted from Braxton Hicks contractions, false labor, and just feeling uncomfy the whole week before. Plus, I was convinced that she would have arrived by then, and so I had family in town, and some of my family actually had already left and they didn't get a chance to meet her. So I was overall like not in a good mood this Monday morning, and Con and I went to the OB together and we packed up my bag just in case, but I had a feeling that we were jinxing it by being prepared with the bag and all of that. But anyway, so we go to the OB, we do some tests. Everything is pretty much borderline. Like, she's still okay in there, and I desperately wanted to be induced. So I go to my OB and I'm like, can I please just get her out? And they were like, yeah, totally. And I totally thought that it was still gonna be a while, that like I would have to like make an appointment or something for later in the week or whatever. But when we were there, I just was like, can I be induced, please? And they were like, yeah, we'll call the hospital and tell them you're on your way now. And I'm like, oh, now? Oh, okay. So we go in. They didn't give me Pitocin at first, so we kind of hung out. And then I'm gonna cut to about 2 a.m. on Monday the 11th was when we started Pitocin, which is the drug to induce labor. And between 2 and 4:30, I was in probably the worst pain of my life. I definitely was prepared for painful contractions, but what I was prepared for mentally was to have contractions that were, that gradually increased in pain level, and that were also rhythmic, or at least like timeable, predictable in some way, in the sense that they would have a beginning and an end, and then there would be a pause between contractions. That's not what happened for me when I was on Pitocin. My pain level went from 0 to 100, and it didn't really go beyond the pain level that I initially felt, if that gives you an indication. And my contractions kind of didn't end. They would lighten up a little bit, but it was basically, if we looked at the monitors that tracked the contractions, instead of it, you know, having like a nice, you can tell where the contractions were, it was very just constant pain. And I'm like, great. So that was insanely painful and mentally very challenging, in the sense that I didn't expect it to be so unpredictable. I thought that things would again be gradual and also rhythmic, and so the fact that those two things weren't happening mentally stressed me out, on top of all the pain. At one point at 4:30, I asked my nurse if I could just have a C-section, because all I wanted in that moment was to be knocked out cold. I couldn't imagine still doing that for hours more. And I honestly also thought that, like, I'm like, we could just go home. Let's just go home. Like, I was not into it. And then my nurse ended up suggesting, she was like, well, you could get an epidural. And my plan was to try natural, but I also was not opposed to getting an epidural, or I thought that I would see how long I could go and then eventually get one like later down the line or something. But at this point I was at like 2 centimeters, and I was just like, you know what, sure, why not, I can't take it. And I'm really glad that I ended up having an early epidural, because after that point everything was just smooth sailing and uncomplicated, which was just awesome. I got very lucky. So got the early epidural probably around 5 or so. In the morning they checked me, so just a few hours later, and I was already at 5, and they were like, this is great, you're progressing, you might have a baby tonight or maybe tomorrow morning, we don't know. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I'm just chilling there, can't feel anything. I remember eating a lot of popsicles, and I also remember the nurses rotating me like a rotisserie chicken, which was really awesome. My nurses did so much for me. It was just wild. Oh, okay. Okay, so I had a feeling I wasn't gonna be able to film this in one go, but I'm gonna try to be more concise with the next order of events. Can't remember where I left off, but a couple hours after I was at 5, so I think only like 2 hours later or something, they checked me again, and to everyone's surprise, I was crying and we were ready to go. Someone was ready to go. So they told me I'm at 10 centimeters, and I was surprised, the OB was surprised, everyone was surprised. And I remember being really surprised because I expected to feel pressure around this point, and I hadn't yet. And so my team was really nice to kind of wait on me and like my body to feel the urge to push and to feel like the pressure. So we waited a little bit while they set up the room, probably at least another hour or so, before we actually got started with anything. And then I pushed for an hour, and then she was out. Connor was there through the whole thing. He held my leg, helped me push, which was awesome. It was such a peaceful experience. There was a lot of love in the room, and then it also just like spiritually was so, again, peaceful. I felt very like safe. I felt, oh my goodness. And obviously like being on pain meds definitely helped, but I think just like I was able to really trust my team, which was wonderful. I had Connor there, and I had like other elements to my birth plan that I wanted, like my playlist and just other good things. I also didn't make a ton of expectations. My main expectation was to survive everything and to not have any major complications was my hope. It was so nice how the whole experience exceeded my expectations. It was a very loving experience, a very peaceful experience, and it was just so wonderful. Like there were so many little moments and things that made things special. We saw the same numbers over and over again, the number 7 and then the number 11. It was just really special, like having all of these little signs, and then also people. There were all these people involved in the birth that I felt like I was meant to meet, which kind of sounds a little like a lot, but yeah, it's like some of my nurses, other people involved in the birth, other people we met at the hospital. There were just so many characters and so many people who we encountered that made our experience more memorable and more positive, which was just really wonderful. I know it sounds like crazy because I really didn't expect to be talking about my birth story with such a positive attitude. But honestly, it's just, I am so grateful. I didn't have the expectation that things would have gone as smoothly as they did. And I didn't want to get my hopes up with everything, but just like having a healthy pregnancy and a healthy delivery with 0 complications, nothing crazy. Everything was just so smooth. We were just so blessed and lucky, and I'm just gonna keep being grateful for the experience that we had. We did have a couple hiccups after the hospital, and so first was when we were heading home, our car didn't start in the garage of the hospital. The battery was dead, and so was the battery for the key. So we spent a lot of time troubleshooting this before realizing that both batteries were the problem and that we just weren't going to drive out with all of our stuff that afternoon. So that was like awkward and anxiety inducing and just not fab. We were so fortunate that my mom was visiting and had a car, and so she was able to come meet us and then help us get home from the hospital. And then we dealt with the car another day. But the anxiety from that, with it only being day 2 after giving birth and just like not knowing what to do, having to leave some of our stuff behind, and then worrying about her being okay with just like the timing of it all, was a lot mentally. So that wasn't great. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I've definitely had a lot of moments of postpartum anxiety and depression, and fortunately I've been able to recognize that so much of it is due to the like hormone crash and just all the changes in my body. And I have a really good support system with my family, with my doctors. I know we're still only at 3 weeks, but a lot of, like for me, a lot of the more stressful moments were in the first couple days that we were home, without nurses and everyone. So like feeling confident in being able to check on her, feeling confident with our car situation, with the first few visits to the pediatrician, going outside. And now that I feel like we've conquered a lot of those fears and uncertainties, it's been so much better and a lot smoother. I've given myself a lot of grace in terms of the healing process and just keeping my mental health a priority as we navigate this new season. In a nutshell, we're honestly so blessed with how smooth and healthy this delivery has been. And while the anxieties and things haven't been that great, I feel so much more hopeful in week 3. And I know it's still a long road of figuring things out and all of that, but we have lots of support with our family, with our friends, with our doctors. And so I'm feeling more confident in just how things are going to work out, in the concept of getting the hang of things. We have the hang of absolutely nothing at this point, but I definitely feel confident that we'll figure it out. And yeah, so we're happy, we're healthy, and we're really lucky. Yeah, I didn't expect our story to be like this, and I'm really glad that's it. So yeah, thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to our story, and I am going to take care of it. And someone's ready for a nap maybe, or something. Okay. All right, bye guys.